In a few hours, a federal appeals court will decide whether to uphold the president's revised travel ban. The block on it, I should say. The Trump administration wants the Ninth Circuit to lift the block on that ban. It was issued by a federal judge in Hawaii. So let's discuss what's going to happen with Farhana Khera. She is president and executive director of Muslim Advocates. And we also have Ben Ferguson, CNN political commentator and host of the Ben Ferguson Show. Great to see both of you this morning.
Morning.
Farhana, I know that you are hoping that the travel ban remains blocked. Why do you believe that's the way the Ninth Circuit will go?
Very fundamentally, Allison, it's because it's a part of who we are as Americans, and the courts who've been ruling on this issue understand that. What do I mean? At the core of who we are as Americans is that we don't treat each other differently based on how we look or how we pray. And those values are at the core of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And there have now been two courts who have issued nationwide halts to the second executive order. And just last week, another judge, actually in our case, Uma v. Trump, also signaled her willingness to basically issue a temporary halt if these two other halts are overturned. The courts understand what's at stake, and we're hoping the Ninth Circuit will continue to do the right thing.
Ben, how do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think reality is the Ninth Circuit's a pretty liberal circuit. The three judges in this panel that are going to look at this were all appointed by Bill Clinton. I don't think that there's probably a really good chance here that they're going to somehow see the president's side of thing based on the politics of this. But you also look at the rewrite of this bill, and the reality is more than 1 billion Muslims around the world still have the ability and access to come to the United States of America. So to imply that this is somehow a ban based on religion is not reality. If it was, then you wouldn't have over 1 billion people that are able to come to this country. The second thing is the countries that this affects are countries which right now are very clearly countries where there's a hotbed of extremism and terrorism. And that's the reason why this should go forward. I hope the judges will look at this and take the politics out of it, the rhetoric out of it, and look at this from a national security standpoint, which is exactly why the president has the authority to do this. And they need to not look at it from a political viewpoint, but look at it specifically from that aspect of, can we vet people coming in where many of these countries don't even have a government that we're communicating with, it's centralized, to background check these individuals. If you can't call a country and say, who is this person, and tell us what their background is, how do we even know who they really are?
Farhana, what about that logic? Because obviously that's the logic. Ben has channeled it well that President Trump and his administration are using, which is there are 44 Muslim majority countries that are not included in this ban. This is not a Muslim ban.
Well, the courts are looking at both the Constitution and national security, Allison, and what they're finding. First of all, they are finding that it's a Muslim ban because while all Muslim countries are not banned, only Muslim countries have been banned. And that's in the face of the fact that the State Department has actually designated some predominantly Christian countries as havens for terrorism, countries like Colombia, the Philippines, and Venezuela. And those countries were not included in the executive order. And in regards to the concern about national security, you know, frankly, dozens of national security officials from both Democratic and Republican administrations disagree with the president, and they're on the record. They have filed declarations and filings with the courts making that view known. In fact, in February, a Department of Homeland Security report that was leaked to the press actually found that country of citizenship is unlikely to be an indicator of potential terrorist activity. So the courts are looking at these factors, and they're ruling against the president.
Allison,
go ahead.
You look at Colombia and Venezuela, two of the three countries that were just mentioned. You look at the intelligence coming out of those two countries. There is no active recruitment of terrorism in those countries to then be spread around the world. We know absolutely without a shadow of a doubt that not only Al-Qaeda, but also ISIS, ISIL, depending on how you describe them, are actively recruiting people to the countries that are on the travel ban that Donald Trump has mentioned. There is no ISIS, Al-Qaeda recruitment going on in Colombia or Venezuela.
I hear you, Ben.
And the terrorism that's happening in those countries are staying within that country.
That's
and a lot of it's narco-terrorism.
Understood. You make a good point. But I think that one of the things that's being used against President Trump and his claim that this is not a Muslim ban is his original intention. His original intention, he said he wanted to ban Muslims. He put that on his campaign website. He tasked Rudy Giuliani with coming up with a way to do it legally. So some of this, the judges are hanging their hat on what his intention was.
Yeah, and that's the politics of this that they have to overlook. You can't talk about Muslim extremism and terrorism and ISIS or Al-Qaeda without talking about the religion. When they attack, they say it's because of religion. When they are shooting at people and killing people, they are actually saying Allah Akbar. So for us to somehow act as if we can separate the religion and they happen to be Muslim is just unrealistic.
Right, so you don't
have
make a
to be able to
distinction,
look at
Ben,
that.
just to be clear, you don't make a distinction between extremists and Muslims.
No, I think there are Muslim extremists, and for us to act as if there's not Muslim extremists in these parts of the world that he's talking about the ban is just not dealing with reality. In national security, we don't need to be politically correct. Again, more than 1 billion Muslims with this ban are still eligible to come and go as they choose in this country.
All right, you guys have laid out the case very well that the judges will be hearing today. We will all be watching to see how it goes. Farhana, Ben, thank you very much.